clicking. Hi. Hi, Internet. It's Bridget Willard, Conversations with Bridget. And I'm having a chat with my new friend, Sherry. Sherry, you want to tell people about you?
Yeah, I am the Wizard of Web. Basically, I founded and started JVM Design in 1995. And that was just after going to art school and not really knowing what to do after that. I was doing freelance graphic design. I thought, I'm going to put all my eggs in this basket and just go for it. So that's when JV Media was founded, and did the first web project in 1995. And that lady, vocal coach in Los Angeles, is still a client. So,
That's amazing. I mean,
yeah.
how did you like I mean, the web has changed a lot in 20 years, Sherry. Like, how has her needs as a business changed?
It's been pretty amazing to be along for the ride that whole time, and evolving as the web evolved. We've rebuilt our site multiple times, of course, in those years, and each time it was like a new evolution. And each time she was like, oh, it just like breathed life into my business again every time that website was updated again. So
Uh-huh.
that was pretty cool. And one of the main things that I learned through all those years was finding quality people that you vibe with is super, super important. Not just to your business, but to your whole business life, your networking, if you have to outsource or anything like that. So, yeah, I think it's super important.
Yeah, it's super important. So, like, there are lots of experts everywhere. I'm sure, Sherry, you get DMs on Twitter, notifications, and private
Yeah.
messages on Facebook and on
Emails.
LinkedIn
Yeah.
and emails. Like, there's a lot of people who know what they're doing on the internet. But,
Yeah.
like, this whole process of figuring out how to find somebody you work with feels to me a lot like dating.
Uh, yeah, kind of. You are kind of sussing someone out as soon as the first time you interact with them, whether it's through, if like you get some cold LinkedIn, salesy pitch, you're just like, delete, like that is not, I mean, most people don't vibe with that. So who responds to that?
I don't know.
So yeah, you're really kind of feeling somebody out from like the moment they get in contact with you, whether you want to even contact them back.
Yeah. And that's the trick because man, this one dude was like, "Oh yeah, I do all this stuff. I do all this stuff. I write." And I was like, I don't know. Like, I'll let you know." Like, I try not to be a jerk on the internet.
Yeah, same.
But he's so persistent. I guess it worked because I was like, "Okay, here's a video of mine. Write 500 words. Here's $100." I'll just find out just because
Yeah,
now I'm super curious because you're so dang persistent.
right.
And there are businesses that still do cold calling.
Yeah.
So, like, let's just say, like, you make it through the swipe of finding someone. Like, a lot of times as small companies or freelancers, we partner with other people,
Yes.
not necessarily the client. Like, the client we're fine with. We have the interview with the client on all this, but then you need to bring in a writer, and then you need to bring in a back end developer, or something like that, or
Yeah.
a WooCommerce expert, or like, you just need more people working on your team to interface with this client. How are you? Do you have like any questions that you ask with people where you're like, this is the good question, like, this is
I'm
the
gonna
way
have
I'm
to
going to figure
jog
it
my
out.
memory like for this because it's been a while since I brought anyone new on, honestly. I think the last the last time I did was about maybe 4 or 5 years ago. I brought on, I call him the heavy lifting programmer because most of what we do is custom WordPress, but if if a client needs a customized plugin or something,
Right.
we have this other guy that does that more advanced stuff. And I think I remember meeting him online. It might have been Twitter or no, it was a referral from somebody. So a referral from somebody, but then I checked him out online and we ended up talking about sci-fi. So I'm like, okay, there's an interest, like a personal interest there. Right. I'm like, he's got to be cool. I looked at some of his projects, of course, to make sure he does what he says he does. But, I like to have personal conversations with people, like, just hop on the phone or video chat or whatever, and kind of get to know them. And I do the same thing with clients too.
Right.
So it's just kind of, I don't have like specific questions that I fire at somebody. I just kind of have a conversation with them and get to know, a little bit about them, like, well, what area of the country are they from, or the world, or whatever. And, just kind of have a natural conversation with them. That's kind of my approach to that.
Having a natural conversation with people who work on the internet is a challenge.
Yeah.
So like one of my really good friends, Amber Hewitt, she likes to ask people what their favorite dinosaur is. Because it's so
funny.
It's just like so random.
Yeah.
It kind of gets them out of that sort of networking, elevator pitch mode.
Yeah.
And gets them talking about something that they remember from their childhood. I thought that was really clever.
That is kind of cool. Yeah. I mean, I love to talk to, I'm like a horrible introvert. I'm like a classic introvert where, once you get me talking on a subject, I'm fine. But like, I won't initiate or, I'm the wallflower to party or whatnot. And, it's hard for me to kind of do the reach out part of that.
Right.
So if I am looking for somebody to bring on, that's the tough part for me. Like, and where do I find these people? And oftentimes it is a referral, someone who's worked with somebody else, and it's not often a cold thing. There's one time about 6-7 years ago that I reached out to a company when we were doing promotion, because we do a little outsourcing ourselves to larger companies or even smaller companies like freelancers who don't have maybe a custom designer or, somebody who's an expert at WordPress. So I reached out to this one company that was somewhat local. They're like 100 miles. They were 100 miles from us. It's since moved. But the reason why I reached out to them is their website was called Chi Studios, and their like little catchphrase was "Good Chi," and I'm like,
"Oh, that's rad!
Good Chi, they've got to be cool,
right?"
So I reached out to them, just on a whim. Like I sent the guy an email, and I'm like, "Yeah, we're somewhat local to you. Just thought I'd, kind of network and kind of get to know you," and it worked out. He turned out to be awesome. We've gotten, we've had like a lot of symbiotic relationships through that company where, if they don't want to do the design for something, they send it to us, or, they can bring in a client and they do the programming, we do the design.
Yeah.
So it often just, it's a sense,
Yes.
like one little thing will tip you off to be like, maybe I should reach out to that person or whatnot. And I mean, we all know how much online is fake or a show or a front,
Well, I mean, it's the best, and it should be. Like, we don't need to be cussing everybody out on the internet, but it does kind of speak to, for example, the not chai. Now I'm thinking of tea. The chi people, right? Like I was like, oh man, I really like a chai latte right now. But that good chi, right? And having that good energy, that tells you so much about them. And that was a risk for them to take in their branding process, to be personal, to be not generic.
Right.
Right? Because there's so many generic websites that are like blah, blah, whatever.
Yeah.
Right? So like if you're, for example, a cat person, you're probably not going to like my designer who doesn't like cats and it's Fat Dog Creatives, and that says no cats allowed, right? You know what I mean? But like
Yeah.
she went all in on the cat versus dog thing, and that's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
But that also speaks to having self-awareness as the person reaching out as to what you do like in a person,
Yeah.
right?
Totally.
So I'm also an introvert, and like when in my dating, I'll be like, "Oh yeah, that guy was really great," and then 2 days later, I'm like, "I don't know about that," because
Right.
I've thought about it longer, but the moment was fine.
Yeah.
So how do you like? Do you have test projects? Do you do scope work?
Yeah, I would do a test project with someone. And when I meet someone new, like if someone finds me through that process, I recommend that too. I'm like, let's do something small and work together and see how it goes, because you really don't know. It's like you don't know someone until you live with someone,
Right.
and then you find out all their weird habits and everything. So yeah, I totally recommend something like that. And it's good to really know yourself too when you're kind of looking for somebody, because if you don't really know what your vibe is,
Right.
how are you going to be able to find your tribe? So yeah, you have to really know yourself, and a lot of people don't. So, there's ways to kind of suss it out. You just experiment with other relationships or whatnot.
Right.
But if you find some commonalities with people, I think there's just a natural flow to
Right.
that. And once you pick up on that, one of the things that I always do with clients too is just kind of really get to know them on a personal level, because that personal stuff does play into their business. Like if they've got 2 kids and they're having to homeschool, they're going to be busy, so it's just getting to know someone naturally, and to do better business with them.
Right.
But if you're looking for someone to actually work with you,
Right.
it's even more important, because their work reflects your work to, your client, or, whatever your service or product you're providing.
Right.
So it's super important that you get it right. And I know I got it very wrong for, there was some bumpy years in the beginning. I was like, I don't know, 23 or something when I started this. So what do you know when you're 23?
Not
like
as much as you think you know.
not as much as you think you know. Exactly. So you're invincible. I know that. But yeah, you just step in these tiger traps, and then you learn and you grow from that. But
Right.
most of the mistakes I made were not getting to know people. If I look back on it, there was like red flags that I missed or something like that, where I could have easily just said, I don't think we're a good fit for this, or, it really didn't work out. Good luck,
Yeah.
on the rest of your career. But yeah, so it's very important to get that kind of thing down early. And it's really all about knowing yourself, finding that common ground, and naturally getting to know someone else. And you kind of know, it's a feeling you
Yeah.
get when you're like, yeah, mi hermano, to drop a Beetlejuice line. Yeah, you get it with somebody.
Right.
And they don't have to be the same as you either. Sometimes,
Right.
An opposite can be great. Like if you're a highly creative person, to find someone that's super business minded and down to earth,
Yes.
it's like the grounding person for you. Like
Yes.
that is so key in your business.
It's huge.
And I totally have one of those here. His name is Jeffrey, and I actually met him through the internet. on Twitter, of all places.
I love Twitter.
Yay. And it turns out he's from the same small town in Pennsylvania that my dad is from.
How weird
Like, what
is
are the
that?
odds of that, Like, so weird. So he ended up moving out here, and he actually works in the office on Tuesdays and Fridays.
Nice.
So yeah, we became fast friends, and he's kind of the old curmudgeon that keeps me in line, So whenever I'm straying too far off in one direction, he's like, bonk, like, you got to get back in this, groove. Because I'm a Pisces. I'm highly creative. I'm just, I can go off really easy. And I can make the magic happen, but I have to be focused on it. It's really easy for me to get, distracted. So
in that case, it's somebody you vibe with that you trust to say no to you.
Yeah, exactly. You got to have somebody to call you out, to kick your butt, like.
That's a work, Bridget. That was just me.
Yeah, when you have to do it yourself, it's like, oh, that's too many hats now.
Right? And my therapist wonders. But you do have to have that person. For me, I created that kind of inner circle of other business owners, and we'll be like, look at this, look at that. Oh, there's a typo. Oh, there's this. I don't know. Maybe Bridget, that's not a good idea. Think about it. That kind of stuff. And so that's mutual respect also comes from those many touch points over time.
Yeah,
so,
totally.
That's,
I totally agree.
It's that confidence you have in yourself, knowing who you are, that a criticism about the work is not a criticism about your soul.
Yeah, exactly. There's criticism, and then there's creative criticism, and
right.
You do kind of need that. It's like you need that little bit of pushback, because if no one ever pushed back on you, you'd just be like floating along, and you'd probably step into some traps and not realize it until like you're there and you're like, oh, now what? So,
or build a rocket ship to space. Either way.
Exactly.
I'm always like, just kidding. I love it. They go, that's not enough information. Okay, make the font sizes bigger. But I'm always going to say that because I'm a social media nerd. I know everything is like 3 to 4 inches big.
Right. Totally. Yeah.
So like, if you were like giving a talk at a meetup or something like that, because you probably should be, and some guy came up to you and said, hey, Sherry, I really love this idea. Where do people go? I mean, it sort of feels like therapy, doesn't it? It's like, when I do my business consulting and I'm asking them questions that seem obvious, and they'll say, well, I already know that. I'm like, I know, but you're not doing it. So why are we talking again? Like, you have to figure out, like, what is that first step of knowing how you like to work? For example, maybe you hate Slack and you're all in on Basecamp 3, or maybe you hate Basecamp 3. You're all in on Basecamp 2. Like, so some of it is like how you prefer to communicate, right?
Yeah. I'm super flexible with a lot of that stuff. There's things that I personally don't like, but like sometimes I'll use it. Like Chi uses Slack, and occasionally we'll use that for a project. I'm classic Basecamp, if you can believe that. I'm like a classic holdout. That's like my curmudgeon type thing. Is like when I find something that works and it's simple and the client, it's easy for the clients to interact with, I'll stick with it. But a lot of times if you have trouble actually with the logistics of something, or if you're one of those, I've had folks that wanted to do like Zoom video check-ins every other day, kind of thing, and you're like, no, I like to be left alone for a little bit.
Do you want me to be your friend, or do you want me to do the work?
Right, that is too much energy zap for me, So yeah, that's an important topic, and that's something else you could vibe with. Like if you found like somebody else that's all like, yeah, classic base camp's awesome, and you're like, okay, that's a touch point, you know,
Right.
like, you know, we got a little thing in common there. But yeah, and there's so many of those things now. I mean, it seems like every month something new comes out that's basically just an over glorified instant messenger, you know?
Right.
Like, why do we need another one of these, you know? And now that you know, obviously new generations are entering the workforce that are totally fine with all of that, you know? And like the older you get, like the more like you're like,
Well,
oh man.
it's also a job costing issue, isn't it? So if I
Yeah,
have to be in
totally.
your meeting every week and I didn't account for that
Yeah.
in my bid, well, that's kind of my fault, but then also I need to change things.
Yeah, totally. Knowing, you know, when to, or even when to pull the plug entirely, you know, if something just is not working out. And it's rare that I've done it, but I have done it. And I'm a great mediator when it comes to doing that diplomatically, you know, but yeah, it's tough because none of that will work out in the end,
Right.
you know. And being able to spot red flags both for clients, incoming potential clients, or people that you want to work with. You know, you could be like totally into like this, you know, like I'll hear about people like chasing companies. Like they're like, oh, I so want to work for
Right.
this company, you know, and they try and try and try, and finally they get the chance, and then there's something really toxic about it, you know, but they have this like, you know, come to Jesus moment where they're like, should I dump it? Because it's like, I always wanted to work with that, like, you know, and really if you got that gut feeling that, ooh, something's off about that. And now we're in such a time where everything's politically charged, or, you know, I mean, whew, there's a lot of, you know, ways that things can go wrong
Right.
these days, especially
Right.
on social media. You know, you could be working for somebody and they say the wrong thing on social media, and you're like, oh, yeah, now what? You know, like,
It can be a
so,
problem. Yeah.
yeah, totally. So, yeah, it's tough.
Did you have a business coach or anything in the beginning to help you figure out like what you wanted, or were you just going on intuition? Not that just
I
is
was,
bad, but
yeah, I was going on intuition a lot. My father was self-employed.
okay.
He was in the military. Then he was a machinist in the Navy, and then he worked a lot of machining jobs, and then decided, you know what, I could have my own machine shop and do this. So when I was about, I think 8 or 9, he started his own business.
Nice.
So that's kind of like the model. And my mom was working in retail. She was working in retail, like her whole career was retail. And I'm like, okay. And I did some retail early on. I worked at a record store when I was 16. Worked there through moving to LA to go to UCLA. And then I worked at a copy store, and then Kinko's.
Oh yeah, Kinko's.
Yeah. So I've done that. I've put in my time doing that. So
Right.
I know what that world is. And I kept thinking back to my dad with his business, you know, and my mom would get this paycheck and she'd get like a 10-cent raise. And like, you know, I'm like, God, that just seems like nowhere, you know. And my dad, meanwhile, would put in a bid for like $8,000 to make these parts. And I'm just like, that seems like a better way to go, you know, and
Yeah.
like, you know, be your own boss and everything. So that's kind of where my initial inspiration came from, was my dad.
Oh, so you grew up with self-employment.
Yeah. And, you know, he had the shop in our garage, so worked from home. And this was, you know, in the 80s,
Right.
When he started. So, yeah, that was my original inspiration. So every now and then, you know, I'd ask him, you know, something about like taxes or something, but pretty early on, I figured out that was not my forte. Like, you know, any kind of accounting thing or anything, I just not. good at. So that was another like avenue where I'm like, I've got to find somebody else to do this.
Yes.
Unfortunately, this person I picked wasn't like great. So that's another whole story where, you pick another service business, and then since you don't know what's going on with that business, you don't know when things are
Wrong.
veering off
Yeah.
and are wrong until, it smacks you in the face. So that's another troubling thing. And, being able to recognize red flags there, and there were some, and I just didn't recognize them. But yeah, professional service-based businesses are so tough because, I mean, a lot of them, like take web or writing or anything, you don't have to have a license for that. Most people don't have a degree in that specific thing. I mean, when I was going to college, there was no internet degree. I mean, it was 1995, like, like things were pretty brand new. Like Delphi internet was like 1993 or something. And then AOL, it was the Wild West,
Right.
So nobody had, social media wasn't around, like, so it's tough. And even now, a lot of our clients will come to us, and I call them like abused children because they've been through the ringer with like, they were charged $5,000 a month from an SEO company that didn't do anything for them, or, they hired somebody for a website and they bailed, and, and those problems can all be solved if you can find, I think if you can be honest, and find somebody else who's honest and authentic, who's not putting on a show. Right. This is JVM Design headquarters, like, I'm pretty upfront about that fact. We do have our team, our core team, and they all work remote too. Jeffrey's the only one that comes in the office here. So, a lot of times what I'll hear from clients is they hired somebody that was a sweet talker, basically, that was young and charismatic and we'll get you to the top of Google, blah, 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 or, we'll have this project done in 2 weeks, or, yeah, sure, we can do that advanced complicated programming. And really it's kind of a front, they get stuck. And so many people that come to us are saying like, yeah, we gave the developer we're currently using like 5 edits like 3 months ago and they still aren't done. And I hear that so much. That's
crazy town.
So I know it goes on,
Yeah, it does. It's kind of a problem when it comes to the people who really know what they're doing, and you're trying to be like, well, I don't know who told you that, but that's not really how the internet works.
Oh no. And I have one client, she's a long-term client who will go off to these like either marketing seminars or something and get all rah up and come back with these like bonkers ideas about what marketing is or what she should do next or this or that. And I'm like, where did you hear that? And I mean, we're like on a level, I mean, we've been working together for 13 years now. So, I'll just tell her like, where did you get that idea?
Right.
That is not correct.
Like, don't get into the car with strangers unless it's
exactly
Uber. Like, that I had a hard time with Uber. Just that's another side. But because I was so ingrained as a child, do not get in a car with strangers. I'm like, who is this serial killer driving me to his lair? So, so the thing is, like, it to me, everything that you've been saying for the last X amount of minutes is know what matters to you, where those points of connection are important, and trust your gut.
Pretty much, yeah. Because if you have a bad feeling about something, there's a reason for that. Those feelings don't just happen out of the blue.
Yeah, make a good decision, burn some sage, move on with your life.
Exactly. Light a candle, do what you need to do, but get that out of your life.
I love it, Sherry. Thanks for coming on with me. How can people find out about you? Tell us a little bit give us your pitch. What is KB Media?
Pitch. We like to to take that whole design process and make it worry-free for somebody, whether it's redesigning your site, whether it's putting up a brand new site, e-commerce, graphics, you have it. And we've developed great relationships with our partners and our team so that we can offer things like writing or SEO, complementary products to go with your design to be the most successful you can be. And we also offer our patented worry-free WordPress maintenance.
Nice.
So yes, that is something that every client that's on it is like, wow, this is super cool. We don't have to worry about this at all. And they really don't. And that's how I came up with the name. So you can find us at jvmediadesign.com or find me on Twitter, which is just JV Media Design. That's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. Thank you, Sherry. It was
Thank you,
so
Bridget.
great to have you. And I'm like, congratulations on your success.
Thank you.
Love that you have a client for like the whole time you've been in business. That is so epic. That's just so cool. And I hope you have a great day.
Yeah,
Bye.
you too. Thanks. Bye.